Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 27th, and as we end the week and pretty much the month, been quite interesting. We've pretty much kind of peaked out here, and then we started this decay and the shakeout, and we've been sort of in this back and forth with what I call within the broader signal. We've been having these positive moves of steel going above cyan, which has given enough support after we had already had the DOC rising from, well, this deep dip that took place at the beginning of August that we've sort of worked through, partial retrace of it, and just been popping up. We've got green over red, though red is slightly falling still, and we have steel over cyan. So it's slightly bullish within the broader weaker trend of red DOC fading. When that didn't dip below the red line, so in general we're still in a continuation. This has sort of been like just a pause. We've been hitting the 76% caught right between here and the ABM yellow. This has still got the potential to turn around a bit because we're seeing an improved shakeout, well, at least starting today. We'll see if it's able to contain itself. Obviously, the political turmoil still throwing things back and forth, and it's been giving us some decent range within a consolidation, because a lot of times we would end up with just a bunch of tiny little bars. So this extra volatility has been very helpful for those that want to trade intraday. It hasn't really affected the overall daily look of things. You can see NASDAQ a lot weaker, just not representing even the steel over cyan in this particular case, going up 0.48 versus the 124, and green clearly underneath the red. So expressing a bit less optimism there, and this is part of the issue. It's going to be tougher for the market to make a move as you continue to get the erosion in the euro here, but that makes the dollar the only game in town, and that is going to have to put some bolstering effect to equities, because it's not like treasuries are paying all that much. So this break of the previous low, we knew it was coming. It's just a question of would the central banks intervene to try and hold it, and at this particular point it's doing okay. You would think that with that breakdown you would have had a much bigger drop. So obviously there's plenty of liquidity to try and hold this thing together, but it's problematic, at least for the Eurozone. And oil still holding on to itself right within that same range that it's been, and I think that's going to be the question now is that with the supply buildup, was that because of a slowing economy? Is China really shutting down in general? These are some of the questions that are going to come with future readings on whether or not there's a supply buildup, because that could indicate a global slowdown, at least more dramatic than we had been seeing prior to this. And from a gold standpoint, it's just pretty much flat. If there's more uncertainty in the political arena, I think that would send gold's new highs, but for now, it's sort of holding with the testimony that took place and the release of the transcripts. It seems like a hyper-accelerated cycle of information. Intraday was quite interesting. We had a few good things to look at. I mean, here we had our DOC spread right up at the peak at the 29.94, and of course we're still playing with these exact same ranges. They haven't even changed any of them. The 94, the 77, 71, and we keep having those as confluences. Anyway, the short came up right about that EBM up here, and it's right around the 29.90 range, which interestingly we had as the yellow ABM from a daily standpoint. And as we came down through here, we ended up with this little interesting setup that always tends to come in down after a bottom draft. You end up with this first turn up, and what I look for is that green coming across, and if cyan breaks above it, you've got a problem. So it did it right there. We came back down, and then we ended up with the P2 pivots, which usually indicates the next set of runs, and that was good until literally a bar later. Right there, we started at the separation of the green in that. This particular case, it's a matter of, well, do you want to wait for the green to fully break down across there, which is not always bad, because that's the cleanest part of it, when the green moves underneath the red and the steel is about to cross below the cyan. right at the 77. I jumped in, well, with an add-in from above at the start of it, because you could see where it was headed. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch. We already had the first beginnings of a rollover early on in the bar, and by the time it finished, though, you're right at the support. I'm not a huge fan of attacking those right at the algo levels, because you tend to get some bounce back and forth. I produced a little dip going back through here, but the important part of this one is, at this particular point, you've got no steel reset. So you know you're still within what I would call a broader short, and this is something you'll see on the 50K a lot too. Then it's just a question of, okay, what's happening with my steel? And when I get a crossover of the steel there with the green, you know that you've got another pop situation, and of course then you can just literally, and I can just put the line, you just go back to where the next breakdown is, and boom, you can see it develop. And if that's where you get the cross, if you wanted to wait for the steel, you're just another bar over. That leads to the next drop, and again, still no reset taking place within that. But every time you do get a step below and then back up, you've got a potential for a little pop, and it's just a matter of waiting for that meeting of the green and cyan, and then a rejection of it, particularly if you've got steel on the decline. And as we slide forward, we end up with a nice little similar concept. Comes back above there, the green rises above. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to have another little short run. This time the green stayed above until right about here, right as we were hitting the 77 algo part, and that's when it gave a little bit of a retrace. And then now we've cleared the broad short that took place all the way from here, because the steel has dipped below the red, and so that's sort of your cue that it's okay, you've started a new cycle, and it keeps it clean that way. It's easy to look at. It's a difficult one that I've been working with programming-wise to assist the language in understanding this idea of a broad short, because you could literally just stay short until you get that transition mode. You're never going to get the bottom when you do that, but you're going to get some type of a pop that's coming off of it by the time it does that. It's just, from a broad short standpoint, it's still going to work overall. And then we flipped over here with the cyan moving underneath red, and that led to the pop that well, took us all the way towards the end of the day. And then right at the end of the day, we ended up with a nice clean DOC spread going through there, and started off pretty decent, popped back up a little bit, but again, this was where we were looking right here, and already the cyan was above the green, and then it kind of was fighting back here right as we ended after hours, but reset there, and then boom, you ended up with the crossover. And you can literally see it, it's right there. You got the green crossing the red, steel crosses with the orange dipping below, and even if you waited one more bar for a confirmation, which was right here, still easy to capture the big move that took us, well, from 75-ish range all the way up to 83. So that's the easy way to catch it. And we can see this play out over and over. And again, now we're in another series of no reset, because after you have your 5 or 10 bars from the time that you've got this initial crossover from the steel below red, and then usually it crosses the steel at that particular point, and you can start to clock off and see how far it takes before you get another reset. And in a consolidation or choppy market, you get it happen a lot, but when you start to develop that trend, and even with the pops within the trend, that's the easy one, is just to follow the steel crossing back above and below. So it works out really well. I hope everyone will take a look at it, because I think that it's something that I'm adapting into the language, so you're not going to notice it after a while, because the colors will just change, and keep it simple. As always though, I'll put up anything unique or whatever that pops along during the day. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.